Good morning, Pabsda. How many of us this morning are in the total mode of celebration? Can I see your hands? Yay, thank you. Beautiful worship, Kara. Thank you, team. How many of us are waiting for God to open the floodgates so He can bring His all glory into His house so we can celebrate? So we can celebrate and experience the true joy to the fullest, what it means to be God's children. What a beautiful series that is to have, to study the aspect of celebration and how it can be part of our everyday walk and everyday life. Thank you for the invitation to come and share with you. I want to also affirm this church and pastors who really supported us over the last weekend. I know Pastor apologized for not being here, but I want to also apologize on his behalf and thank you for allowing all of your three pastors to be at the one project which was held at East Auckland premises. It was a beautiful, inspiring event where we discussed Jesus, who is the center of all who we are. And we look forward to some more projects like this in New Zealand. But thank you to those ones that joined us. It was a totally uplifting experience. I like how God, in so many ways and in so many instances in His Word, encourages us to celebrate. I like the way the Apostle Paul puts it in Philippians chapter 4 and verse 4. He says, celebrate God all day, every day. I mean, revel in Him. Friends, this is the imperative. Celebrate God all day and every day. How many of us think that this kind of attitude is some kind of realistic achievement? That it's actually easy to do, to celebrate God every day and all day. I think you've been unpacking this topic quite well, because a lot of hands went up. That is a really positive sign. Well, the good news is that God didn't just say celebrate or be happy, or He didn't say fake it until you make it. Just be happy, So you are going through some rough times, through some challenges. That's okay. Just stay positive. God didn't say it like this. God provided a way that will enable us to actually live out this command. So we are truly able to celebrate Him all day. And of course, every day. For so many Christian people, it's very unattainable. They may think that it's some kind of denial of their true reality. How can you live in the constant mode, in the constant, with the constant attitude of celebration? I believe that no one will be able to live with the constant attitude of celebration just because God said so. And the pastor preached a beautiful sermon. And then we will go home and we say, well, I better actually start celebrating because the Bible says so. God said so, pastor said so, so I must be happy. Do you think it will help? Maybe not. But I have some good news. God not only gives us enormous amount of reasons to celebrate His goodness and His faithfulness and His mercy, but He also shows us a way that enables us to actually be glad and rejoice in Him, even during the most unfortunate circumstances, troubling circumstances, when the heat is going up. God provides something for us that we can still look to the future with hope and celebrate in the present. Celebration, gladness, and joy in our present, I believe, are a result of three things. And I don't want to kind of put it in a little box and say just three things, pencil it in, memorize it, this more. But I want us to focus on three aspects that I believe will help us to experience this kind of joy on a regular and consistent basis. I believe there are three aspects to it. When we look at our past, that builds us up to our present and also gives us hope to the future, we will be enabled to celebrate in the present. And let me rephrase this now with these words. Your experience in the past and your hope for the future, tied together by faith, results in your joyful present. And this is exactly what God has provided for us to truly celebrate Him whole day and every day. With this in mind, I want to share two stories. And we'll unpack some of those principles that we can learn from those stories. You are most welcome to study them in detail in your own time. The first one I want to share is written in Joshua chapter 4, and the specific story I'm referring to is found in the verses from 1 to 9. Having wandered for 40 years, the people of Israel reached the place where they could see the promised land. And they were excited, they were willing. But at the same time, they were a little bit fearful. And there was a lot of uncertainty and unknown. And in front of them, they had the raging waters of the Jordan. Can I cast a bridge to our situation? I think you and I are also on a journey in our lives. We are journeying somewhere in our lives. We have hopes, we have dreams, we have lives that take us different places. And at times, we find ourselves in the similar situation. When we look to the future, we have a hope, we are excited, and at the same time, we can be uncertain or fearful because we don't know what the future holds. Have you found yourself in a situation like this? Or I should say, how often do we find ourselves in situations like this? And is it easy at those times to actually celebrate God like you mean it, like it comes from your heart? Well, in that story with Joshua and the people of Israel, God had a plan how to enable them to carry that attitude of joyfulness and celebration throughout their future time. He cut off the current of the river, of the Jordan. And they were able to walk through as the story unfolds. But then, as they all crossed, God said, we are going to do one simple thing. He says, I want 12 men from each tribe to go back to the middle of the riverbed and pick up a big stone that you are going to carry on your shoulders to the place where you are going to camp. And there I want you to erect a memorial of those 12 stones. And they will be a sign. And I want to quote verse 7 here. 6 and 7, he says, they will serve you as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, what do these stones mean? Tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever. Now, this story tells us that the purpose of the memorial was to remind the people, and especially the successive generations, of the power and faithfulness of God, how He had led them throughout their time of wandering in the desert. And that memorial would be an important landmark to those living, and especially to those generations that were going to come after. I want to put it in this simple principle. A powerful motivation for celebrating God in our present is intentionally remembering and reflecting on how He has worked in our past. In other words, you cannot just fake your attitude of gratitude and joyfulness and celebration if you are not reflecting on the past experiences that strengthen your walk and faith in the present. Just as the psalmist says in Psalm 77, he says, I will remember the Lord's works. Yes, I will remember your ancient wonders. I will reflect on all you have done and meditate on your actions. Friends, if we don't have marks or memorials of the important events, we can lose the connection to both the event itself and God who intervened or who was part of our experience. They will enable us to carry on in life, to celebrate in all circumstances, because we know God is in control. And more than that, if we find ourselves in the most unfortunate circumstances, we will know that somehow they are part of God's plan. And we are not forgotten. He will provide, because He has provided this far. God wanted Joshua and the people of Israel to remember how He had worked in their lives so they would celebrate Him in their present and in their future. In fact, throughout the earth's history, God Himself established a number of memorials to remind us of His great work. And here's a little quiz for our children if you are present. And adults can join us. Can you think of the very first memorial that God established to remind us of something very, very special and beautiful? The very, very first memorial that we, in fact, whether you know it or you don't, we still celebrate. I hear some clues going around there. I can give you a clue. We celebrate this memorial every single week with the 7-day cycle. Any more clues? This is, yes, this is Sabbath, thank you. This is God's memorial of His creation to remind us that He is the one who created this beautiful world. And that's why when we come to church or we go someplace in the nature on the Sabbath day, we reconnect with Him and we celebrate, and we are filled with this joy, and we relax and we say, yes, Lord, it is beautiful. Friends, if you never say it is beautiful on the Sabbath day, you really don't keep the Sabbath. If you are just too busy on the Sabbath without really stopping and reflecting, you are not, even if you are Seventh-day Adventist, it doesn't mean you are still not keeping it. Because it was designed for us to reflect, to stop and reflect. Here's the second one. Ooh, did I just expose my quiz? There was the second one. If you didn't see the screen, what do you think the second memorial of God's mercy and faithfulness? Rainbow. Yay, thank you. That's good from Children's Sabbath School class answer, thank you. And maybe the last one, there's more. Can you think of any other? Especially children? If you are 60 and you are in Children's Sabbath School, it's still okay. I can think of maybe the communion as well, that we do regularly, that reminds us also of the amazing grace that we receive from God, because He is our Lord and He is our Savior. This is how memorials work. And I want to say that although we see this in the Bible and God was really intentional about it, I think in our own experience, we too can follow this pattern and establish our own little memorials or things that will remind us of significant events in our life and also of God's work in our lives as well. Now, memorials encourage us to actually stop and take our focus from what we are giving our focus to, our lives, our business, and all that is happening in our lives, and look at the things that God is doing amongst us and in us and through us. It is so easy to get used to receiving all of those blessings without really acknowledging the giver. It is so easy to be at the receiving end and then forget where they come from and think that you are the one who is so lucky, or you just are so smart because you have it all together. I came across this little story that I want to share with you about a lady that went shopping. All ladies love shopping. And so she went shopping during the day. As the day unfolded, she felt like having a coffee break. So she went and got herself a little cookie bag, and then went to stand in line for coffee. When she got her coffee, went to a busy, crowded table and found a seat. And as she sat down, pulled a magazine, started to read, and started to sip the coffee and really enjoying her break. A couple of minutes later, she reached out to the bag and pulled one of the cookies and really enjoyed the cookie. A second later, she noticed that the man that was seated on the other side of the table reached out and got a cookie. Now that put her off. And she was just about to get upset, but she didn't say anything. A couple of minutes later, she got another cookie. And guess what? The man did the same thing. He got another cookie. Now she was truly upset, especially now that there was just one cookie left in the bag. Even before she could think about anything or say anything, the man smiled at her, got one cookie, broke into two halves, gave her one half, put the other half into his mouth, ate it, and then smiled at her, put his newspaper under his arm, and walked off. Now, friends, her whole coffee break was totally ruined. She was already thinking how she would go home and will tell all of her family about this disgusting situation in the shopping mall. She picked up her bag and opened to put the magazine in the bag, and there she saw her own bag of cookies. Friends, that story reminded me of myself. It made me think of me, that I at times do not really appreciate those things that God places right in front of me every single day. And maybe, just maybe, I think that it's not even Him who places all of those things. I just take them for granted. And let alone, if I don't get anything, I do get upset. And here is what I would like to encourage as one of the things that come from the idea of these memorials, is to stop. Take your eyes off of wherever you are looking at in your life and look at what God is doing, where He is. Establish some kind of routines during the day where you can be intentional about it, where you can slow down and look for those things that really communicate to you that God is part of your life. And in fact, He is all, if He is truly all in your life. I have a couple of things I want to just share with you as an idea. One of my relations, thought that I needed one of those plaques. And I believe that I truly need, because here, and I have this plaque in my office, it says, "Be still and know that I'm God." This is my memorial, and this is my thing that kind of helps me to connect with who I am and who God is. And I look at it and interpret it this way. When I'm going through maybe a series of projects, or life is so busy, it is time to again acknowledge that you are not God. He is God. Because He says, "Be still." In other words, stop. Take your eyes off yourself and of your little things and look at me, because I am God, not you. You are not running your life. I am running your life. So be still and acknowledge that I am God in your life. What is your little reminder of God's work in your life? As I was working further on this topic, I looked through my office, and it prompted me to think further. And I have different things that remind me of different aspects of my life. And I have this beautiful image of photographs or blocks of this beautiful lady. It's my wife. And at times, kind of sit and look and truly start to reconnect with my wife and think about my relationship with her. And then I'm prompted to maybe send a little text message with some words of affection and affirmation. And again, that serves as a point of connection. Now, the fact that I have this, this is a side issue, I want to suggest that the fact that we have the different memorials may not necessarily be enough. Because the fact that I have this beautiful image of my wife in my office doesn't prove that I have a loving relationship with my wife. The fact that you may have a memorial may not prove that you have a great relationship with God. And in fact, this is what the people of Israel at times did. They turned memorials into idols. And they thought that just because I have this little piece of the rock or whatever, then God is with me. But there was this relationship. That's why I want to add this other step forward. Reflect. Which means take time to really reconnect and think about your experience with God. What role He is playing in your life, how He is leading you, and what it means to you. I want to suggest a couple of different routines. Take time, maybe even during the day or in the evening, to reflect on 5 things you are grateful for. And I will explain later why it is so crucially important. It's a simple routine that will tremendously change your day and will empower you to live in this mode of celebration and gratefulness. I have this beautiful thing that I got, this just a box of minties that I got from one project when I was in Newcastle. And it actually established another routine that I truly enjoy doing. Every day you can open one of those minties or anything, or lolly, whatever you put inside. And then you can have this lolly or minty. And at this time, you can truly think about God, about Jesus, and what He means to you. Is Jesus all to you? We all know Pastor Kendall Coben. Yeah, he was pastoring here around our union as ministerial. And once he came to visit us, and as we talked, every 1 hour, his phone went beep. Like, what's going on? I said, Kendall, are you okay? Or your phone needs some repairs or adjustment. And I think Pabsda, you were doing this kind of experiencing God's presence, yeah? And he says, no, I'm just being reminded of God's presence in my life right now. I'm like, true. What a wonderful routine to kind of be reminded of, hey, God is here. God is in control. I'm living in His presence. Wherever that memorial is, use this to really reconnect with God and what He is doing in your life. Another aspect, and the third aspect in this process is celebrate. Now, celebrate is a verb. It's an imperative. It is something that engages us in action. And although we have all these memorials and beautiful memories and references to our past experience, friends, they are not enough. Because we need to express our gratitude and also our praise to God, whether through song, words, or prayer, or just in any form that sort of expresses your feelings and your experience. Can I share here this story that is written in 2 Chronicles chapter 20. It's also a known story. It will be great to study in greater detail. When Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, received bad news, very bad news, because the people from Moab were going to come against him. And in fact, the news informed him that they were not too far from his kingdom already. Can I also put a little bridge to our circumstances. How often do we receive bad news? That phone call you wish you never received. Or that information that came your way, you received some bad news that you wish you never received. How is it possible to celebrate? And what do we do at times like this? Now, when you read this story, you will find what Jehoshaphat did. This is amazing. Jehoshaphat, as the story goes, and I will read just the last part of the story. After consulting the people, the king appointed singers. Hello? I understand if Kara was the king of Judah at the time, that's what she would do, because she's the worship person, yeah? The king, the warrior, the one who was supposed to rally the kingdom to actually go against in an army, he says, let's actually do some choir practice. We'll choose some songs and we'll sing them happily. And then, as a second matter, we will send some soldiers. But our priority and our front line will be the choir, and I will be the choir director. And everybody enjoyed the idea. And they went, and this is what they sang. It's beautiful. And they sang, "Give thanks to the Lord. His faithful love endures forever." Friends, they started singing and praising God for the victory they hadn't received yet. They hadn't seen, but they were already singing and praising Him and thanking for that gift of victory. Friends, I believe that we need to rewrite a lot of our prayers, negative prayers. When we come and we beg and we plead and we mourn, and God says, I wish you were just a little bit more positive. And I wish you just noticed all of those things that I've put in front of you or before you and the experiences that you have had this far, so you can have this faith in the now and look to the future with the hope, because I'm going to provide for you. I think we need to start with praise and finish with praise and thank Him even before we have received. Because to those ones that love Him, everything works out for their good. Because He is the one who provides for our needs. He is the one who is in control of our lives. I cannot refrain from connecting this spiritual aspect of celebration with our everyday life and our everyday experience and our well-being. Can I do this? Because this is all part of our experience. The Bible also tells us why it is absolutely important that we celebrate. So it's not just some kind of spiritual discipline. Celebrate. Be happy. There is a huge reason why God tells us in so many ways in the Bible, in so many instances, to celebrate and be happy. Did you know why? Because you and I were created and designed so we could celebrate. And if we don't celebrate, we actually kill ourselves. How does this work? Well, let's look at Proverbs chapter 17 and verse 22. The wise man says, a cheerful disposition is good for your health. Gloom and doom leave you bone-tired. Friends, God created us so we are happy, and so we can celebrate. And the more we celebrate, the happier we will be. There were a number of studies done why the cheerful and positive outlook to life in general, encourages people to enjoy better quality of life and have even better health than those people that live in doom and gloom. For example, Chris Woolston, who is a health medical writer, he wrote that when it comes to a life satisfaction, your opinion definitely matters. That's what Duke University found when they asked almost 3,000 heart patients to classify their health as poor, fair, good, or very good. As reported in the journal Medical Care, those who choose very good were about 70% less likely to die within 3 years than those who answered good. And they had 3 times the survival rate of those who claimed poor health. So your opinion and your outlook actually does matter. And here is another dramatic example of the power of your disposition. We'll come back. Johns Hopkins University discovered this, that a pessimistic outlook proven to be deadlier than congestive heart failure or smoking 50 or more packs of cigarettes every year, even if you are Seventh-day Adventist. It's almost 1 pack a week. Friends, that this is why the Lord tells us again and again, rejoice in the Lord, be glad in Him, celebrate. They also did an interesting study. They scanned the brain of the lady who they technically set up to read some good, noble, and uplifting story. And as she was reading all of these beautiful stories, then they put her through the scanner, scanned her brain, and this is how her brain looked. This is very healthy-looking brain. Then the same lady, 40 minutes later, they give her to read some very unpleasant and troubling kind of reading. And she reads for 30 minutes. And then they put her to this machine that does SPECT scans, and this is the scan that comes out, which is an absolutely unhealthy brain with a lot of holes. Have you noticed that when you start thinking about all the negative things, you start to think about more and more, and then you can think yourself into so much trouble that it's very hard to think yourself out of it. On the other hand, if you live with this attitude of celebration and look at those signs that God has put in place and surround yourself with those aspects, you will be celebrating even more. And the more you celebrate, the healthier and the happier you will become. I want to close with this simple recap that will enable us to continue experiencing this aspect of continuous and consistent celebration of our lives as we carry on our journeys. What are our experiences in the past? What are our memorials that we turn to, that we look at in our lives that give us faith for the present? How often do we stop to reflect on those aspects during the day, during the week? To draw this energy, to draw this hope from them, and to feast on the faithfulness and grace and love and power of God. These moments will provide hope for the future, because then we will know that God is in control. And surely they will provide hope and joy for the present. So we can celebrate God, as the Apostle Paul says, and as God says in different places in His Word. Celebrate God all day and every day, not just on the Sabbath day. I mean, revel in Him.